Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Stitches podcast. I'm your host, Luke Manderfeld. I hope you had a great and safe Labor Day, the 3-day weekend, and we're back with another episode. Robert Sangler and Nick Budig with me today. Robert, how's it going, my man? You got the Reds hat on. I think you
Yeah.
are. It's a little bit of an inkling of what we got coming on deck today.
Yeah, so I've supported the Reds a little bit at the beginning of the season. Unfortunately, now there is a turn of events, but especially with one of my guys, we'll get into him. But I tell you what, the Reds have been an absolute disappointment in Major League Baseball this season. Even if you had them second, they're not in second. If you had them first winning that division like I did, yikes. That's all I got to say. Yikes.
What did you do for Labor Day, man?
I sat here and did literally nothing, dude.
Well, wasn't your internet out for 2 days?
Yes, so that was
Yikes.
exciting. Love having internet out for 2 days. If you want to have really bad internet, come to the Stangler house. It's top tier. There's nothing like it. Trust me.
Yep. I think it's every night at 9:30 your internet goes out.
Probably.
We're
They just
playing Warzone with the boys, and all of a sudden, oh, there's Robert with his nightly dropout right there.
routine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yikes.
You're moving soon, so it's all right.
Yeah, 17 days.
There you go. Got the countdown going.
Absolutely.
Nick, how's everything in your world? How'd you enjoy your 3-day weekend, Labor Day? Did you work
It was
today?
great. Yeah, I actually had to go in today, so it wasn't a 3-day weekend for everyone in the world.
You worked on Labor Day, literally the day where you're not supposed to work.
We had to do labor on Labor Day,
There you go.
so it was good. It was nice though. It's getting cold up here, a little cooler. It's starting to you're starting to feel the winter breeze rolling up here.
It's like 52 degrees where I'm at. So
Yeah, it was like I think we had a freeze advisory this morning.
Wow,
Oh, geez, you already got freezing temps.
Yeah, so
that's scary.
Yeah,
Look out,
tough
boys.
scenes for the Budig.
yeah. My winter complaints are going to be upon us in like 2 weeks, so
2 weeks, good to know.
I just want you guys to be ready.
All right, we're ready. But yeah, so it's good to have everybody together here after the holiday weekend. Like I said, we're going to be talking about some of the Ohio teams, the Indians and the Reds. Both kind of have two different stories to tell this season. But before we get into that, just want to remind you that we're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Music. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. If you want to follow along for the last few weeks of this season, that's right. There's only like 3 weeks left already. Only like 20 games left for some of the teams, and for some teams there's more, like the Cardinals. But we're almost to the end, so if you want to follow along, subscribe, rate, review, we would appreciate it. Send your questions and comments to thestitchespodcast@gmail.com. That's thestitchespodcast@gmail.com. And like us on Facebook and Twitter on social media. Just search @StitchesPod on those platforms, and you'll find us. Okay, name game today. All right. Name game today is Lance Shade. Lance Shade. Outfielder in the Cardinals organization. Robert, start with you today. Lance
No.
Shade, baseball player or not?
No.
All right. Nick?
No.
All right, 2 no's from Robert. Not a baseball player. At the end of the show, we'll find out if indeed Lance Shade is a outfielder for the Cardinals. And if he is, hopefully he can help out this outfield, because the Cardinals outfield is the worst in baseball in terms of offense. Okay.
It'll get better.
Going to a team that also has a terrible outfield for offense, the Cleveland Indians. That's going to be the first Ohio team on the docket today. They're 25-15, second in the AL Central. A lot of it is carried by their pitching, and which we'll get into. On the year, their offense is hitting .227 with .323 on base percentage, one of the worst in the American League, which is very comparable to the Reds, which we'll get into later as well. But Robert, with the Indians, a pretty good start for them. They're second in the AL Central. They're kind of vying with the White Sox and Twins right now. I think when we did our season preview, Indians didn't really enter the discussion much. And if they did, it was either the wild card or second place. In your mind, has it been an overperformance from them, or just kind of just right for you?
Actually, no, I think this is just about right. I really was unsure if this team was going to be an explosive team like they have been, But I did have them as a wild card. I thought that was pretty favorable with their starting pitching. I wasn't sure their offense was going to hold up too much, and therefore that's why I gave them the rating of the wild card. But I mean, they're playing really good baseball right now. They're in second place. They're not that far behind. I think it's like half a game from the Sox. And we've had this discussion of the Twins and the White Sox the last, month and a half. But really, the Indians need to get some more praise. They need to be talked about. And obviously, their starting pitching is definitely where they're strong. But the bats have picked up. Franmil Reyes, which I'm sure Nick is very excited to talk about, has been absolutely amazing. I mean, holy cow. This guy is an MVP candidate now. And the Indians have looked very hot. Tyler Naquin's hitting a lot better. We talked about a crappy outfield that they have. My goodness, the Indians are playing very good baseball.
Yeah, we talked about this before the podcast too. They love trading with the Padres. Obviously,
Yeah,
Mike Clevenger was the most recent one, but Franmil Reyes also came over from the Padres too, and he like
Yes.
Robert said, been tearing the cover off the ball. He's always been just a big bopper, but he's put together a pretty good line here. Nick will get into that, but 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're 14-7 on the road. They're better on the road than they are at home. Half game back of the White Sox, like Robert said, a half game up on the Twins. Nick, the Indians are looking pretty good.
I think they look real good. It's obviously led by their pitching, like Robert said, and Franmil Reyes I'll just jump into him, has been absolutely incredible. I was big on him last year with the Padres. He hit the ball hard. That's what he does. He hits the ball hard, and he's making all sorts of contact this year, which is when you put those two things together. I mean, you can hit contact and not hit the ball hard. You can hit contact and not make. I mean, hit the ball hard and not make contact. But like Reyes is putting it together this year. He's making solid contact, and the ball is flying all over the place. He's a big guy, 6'5", 265, and he's only 25 years old, which is kind of surprising to see him moved by the Padres already when he has so much potential. I was big on him last year, like I said, for the Padres. I thought he was going to do great things for them. Obviously, he came over to the Indians and is doing great things for them, and is, like Robert said, really the biggest part of that offense, and really kind of the only offensive player they have right now that's consistently putting the ball in play and doing damage across the board.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Francisco Lindor's been pretty good too, but not like his normal self. I got to throw in my man Shane Bieber. He wasn't on our pregame doc here that we always go off of, but Shane Bieber could be the MVP as a pitcher. Get some of these crazy stats. So let's just go over the basic ones. 1.25 ERA, 57 and 2/3 innings, 14.7 strikeouts per nine. He almost has 100 strikeouts already. He has 8 earned runs on the year. He has 7 wins. He almost has as many wins as earned runs. And half of his earned runs came off home runs.
He's been ridiculous.
No, I shouldn't say that. He's allowed 4 home runs and 8 earned runs. So, like, pretty much all of his runs have come on home runs. Like, unbelievable stuff from Shane Bieber. And this is a guy 3 years ago, if Noah was still with us, would tell you, this guy's going to be a stud. And he wasn't wrong. He was all over him. We were kind of skeptical, but honestly, he's the best pitcher in baseball. We said it 3 weeks ago when we talked about who's the best pitcher in baseball, and we'll say it again. Shane Bieber is the best pitcher in baseball right now. There's no disputing that. Maybe there's disputing it 3 weeks ago, but there's nothing there. I want to talk about more on the offensive side of the ball. The meat of their order, Carlos Santana, Francisco Lindor, and Jose Ramirez, it's kind of been an interesting part of their lineup. I'm going to start talking about Carlos Santana because this is a guy I've liked a lot. His batting average is really what kind of puts him down for a lot of people. He's hitting 203 this year. But if you look at his on-base percentage, he actually leads, the lineup besides Franmil Reyes. 362 on-base percentage. That's what he does. He's not really the batting average guy, but he gets a lot of walks, and he helps his team out a lot in that regard. 362 on-base percentage is really good. And if only he could put the ball in play, like there was a year where he hit 250 and his on-base percentage was almost 400, if not over 400. So that's what he does. And I think going forward, you'd hope that he puts the ball in play a little bit more and strikes out a little bit less. But nonetheless, it's been pretty impressive from him. Francisco Lindor, which I mentioned a little bit, 6 home runs. He's in 280, 341. Not his normal, elite year, but he's still been a really, really good part of that lineup. Jose Ramirez has kind of had a pretty good year after having some troubles, in the past years. 9 home runs, 253, 356 on base percentage. The meat of the order for the Indians hasn't been like the best out there, but it's been really, really solid. And compare that with some of the best pitching Major League Baseball, and that's what you get the Cleveland Indians being, one of the best teams in the AL Central right now. I do have concerns about this offense, though, because if those three guys aren't clicking, there's not much besides Franmil Reyes. And I like Franmil Reyes enough, but I'm a little skeptical about if he can consistently keep this up, even in like the postseason or in the stretch run
Mm-hmm.
here. So.
Yeah, we saw at the
Uh,
beginning of the season too, Luke, with the Indians' offense being
Yeah.
they're not clicking on any cylinder at
It's
all,
just
and therefore it was just awful.
well, it's just so top heavy.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, you list
let's
those outside of that, it's like nothing.
and I'll be honest, like we say that, but they haven't been clicking all year, honestly. Like that Franmil Reyes and Lindor, it hasn't been that good. Like I said, they're
Right.
kind of bottom of the league and they're still playing this well. So maybe I'm just completely wrong about everything. But I like you have to have some offense. Like I know Robert, you love pitching in the playoffs and during the season, but you got to have some offense.
Well,
You can't just have
yeah, I mean, and the Indians have that type of offense. They're going to score, some runs with the top, that meat of the order, like you said. Like Cesar Hernandez at the top of the order is really nice too. That's something that we didn't mention. But the problem is that's not guys that are going to obviously produce all the time. And when they don't, the bottom of the order has to do something. And the bottom order is not expected to carry the load. It's just got to have to be productive enough that when these guys like Lindor, Martinez, Ramirez gets into a slump, you don't want that to continue for a long time because Ramirez is well known for getting in slumps. And when he gets in a slump, boy, is he bad. He's very bad. You don't like to see it.
Yeah,
It's gross. And I mean, it's like, and all the guys we just listed, really the top guys are all in the infield. Ramirez, Lindor, Hernandez, and Santana. Reyes, from Franmil usually DHs. But that outfield, it's been just a carousel of just awful offensive contributors. I mean, they shipped Greg Allen out. They've had Lionel DeShields out there. They had Mercado, and they sent him down because he's just been awful. Now they got Josh Naylor, who hopefully is going to do something. It's just been like Loophole's been out there. They can't find any offensive production in their outfield, and it's just, I mean, they've like Naquin and Mercado. They've shown glimpses in the past, but it's like no one in the offense has contributed him. Yeah, I mean he's been good, but I mean just now he's heating up. That offense in the outfield.
It's a little late to the party. Yeah,
Naquin's on base percentage is 284, which is just 24 points below his batting average. I mean,
it's because he's getting more.
Unless you're Tim Anderson, that doesn't really work out very well. So, the most interesting thing has been Oscar Mercado. I think the way he just flopped to start this year. I mean, awful. 137. He didn't even have a home run, and he just has not, like, that's nuts for a guy last year who was kind of taking the league by storm. And then Domingo Santana's a guy you didn't mention in the outfield. He was supposed to be a pretty good contributor offensively. He's known for his defensive troubles, but he just was awful too. And so when you have those issues, if those two are clicking, or at least what you expected them to do, not even overperform anything, this Indian team would be, a few games in first place if they had those guys, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. The bullpen has been actually really impressive too, beyond just the rotation, which the Indians are very, very well known for. We talked about James Karichnik. I said that wrong. Karinchak.
Here we go again.
Karinchak. I'll get it right one of these days.
I still think it's Karen Chalk. But
yeah, well, whatever they said on the broadcast. But he's been. We talked about him last week as one of the most surprising players out there, and but there's been a lot more guys. And Robert, you were kind of breaking down some of them.
Yeah, so obviously there are a lot of known names in that bullpen that people know, like Brad Hand, Oliver Perez. But actually, we need to talk about some that were one in particular that was very disappointing last season, traded over from the San Diego Padres, go figure, in the Brad Hand deal last season. Or was that 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago, actually. But anyways, 2 years ago. So Adam Simber is that guy. Last season, he had a 4.36 ERA. His whip was awful at 1.324. This season, he has a 1.8 ERA and a 1 whip. And why is that such a big an improvement? Because his control has become more crisp. He's just pitching to contact. He's not trying to do too much. He is really only walking. I think he has 1 walk this season, which is actually like spectacular for a guy who had a little bit of walk problems last season. Now, obviously, 10 innings is not a lot of a big sample size, but it is something, and the Indians have utilized him well, and therefore the numbers are showing. Now, the analytics will not back up his stuff, obviously, because his stuff is just not that great.
No, it's a lot of pitch to contact.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And he's doing he's maintaining his role, and therefore because he's a submarine pitcher, it works. And that's what makes him valuable in today's game. Whereas last year, he was not making contact. He wasn't pitching to contact, and everyone was just swinging and just roping balls off him. And now he's being a little bit more complete, which is very important for the Indians because, like I said, when you look at the bullpen, it's not strong with stuff normally, unless you're, Karen Shock. But otherwise, it is a pretty steady bullpen. It's not amazing, but it's still putting out, and that's important.
Mhm.
Now, the next guy, Phil Maton, is unbelievable. Analytics loves this guy. I love this guy. This guy might have one of the best curveballs in the game. And then he also has an extremely good, better than Aaron Savali cutter. I mean, this guy could probably be a starter, to be honest. He has that kind of a mix, fastball, cutter, curveball. He has a 2.63 ERA. He has 19 strikeouts in 13 and 2 innings, 1.10 whip. I honestly believe this guy is the most underrated reliever in Major League Baseball. Nobody's even talking about him. And again, he came from the San Diego Padres for money. It was in 2019. It was literally, no one even talked about it. Nobody even cared. This guy came out of nowhere, knowing the Indians and how they develop pitching. This guy has become an absolute stud stable. And I really hope that this guy just stays with the Indians for a while because this guy is so fun to watch. He's probably my favorite reliever to watch in the American League. Like, I'm not even joking. This is the biggest sleeper you're going to find in baseball in the reliever role.
Yeah, and the thing about Adam Simber that I want to point out, the transformation in his pitching style. Because in 2018 he pitched for both the Padres and then traded to the Indians. His strikeouts per nine with the Padres, 9.5 in 48 innings. His ERA is 3.17. Really good. And I remember when they made that trade, he's kind of a under the radar type reliever, and everyone's kind of excited about him. His strikeout per nine this year, 4.5. His ERA is 1.8. He's halved his strikeout rate, but his walks have gone down. He's really, like you said, pitching to contact, and that's been a big part of his success. But it's been pretty cool to watch as a 29-year-old for him to make that transformation, not striking a lot of guys out and figuring out how to get crucial outs for this bullpen, which they really need, like you said.
Yeah, because, I mean, the roles. Brad Hand's the closer. Karen Chalk's going to come in for the big outs. And, I mean, anyone could be the setup man, basically, for the Indians. But Phil Maton is just that guy who just kind of gels in there, and you're sleeping on him. I mean, he comes in against the White Sox. He strikes out all three batters because he's got such good off speed, and Chicago cannot hit off speed. So Phil Maton's definitely a guy that not only people need to start hearing about, the media needs to start talking about. This is a big player. I'm not kidding.
No,
Analytics
they're too busy
absolutely
talking
backs
about
him
the
up.
Yankees' downfall.
That's all I'll
Right.
talk about.
But here's the thing. Like I said, even analytics is backing this guy up. I think he's top in exit velocity, not giving up any hard contact at all. It's amazing. This guy's ridiculous. Like, he is way up there.
Great. Well, let's move on to the National League side of Ohio. It's the Cincinnati Reds, and they have been very, very underwhelming. As we mentioned, this is a team that a lot of people on our podcast mentioned winning the division. It wasn't me, but I won't name names. We'll find out at the end of the season. But they are 18-23, fourth in the NL Central. Robert, what's gone wrong for the Reds so far? Just kind of break it down.
It's the hitting. The offense has been so bad. There has been nobody getting on base. They had Akiyama starting leadoff at the beginning of the season. It hasn't worked. They're trying all sorts of different things, mixing, matching lineups. Suarez was hurt at the beginning of the year. He is still not performing well. He has his home runs, but he's not getting on base. He's not hitting for average. There's just nothing really clicking for them besides Jesse Winker. Winker's really the only bright spot, and I'll get into that later. But it's a shamble of an offense, and I don't know where they're going to get production, but I think they should have probably traded Trevor Bauer. Personally, I think that was the move.
Nick, what's been your kind of diagnostics on what's gone wrong?
It's kind of is the big fear when I know I picked them. I was high on them in the offseason, obviously, but it's the defense has been bad. I mean, we weren't expecting it to be great. I mean, Castellanos has played in the outfield 41 too many times. Moustakas hasn't been good. It's just, and I mean, the pitching has been good. Trevor Bauer has been better than expected. He's been incredible. Sonny Gray's been very good. Castillo, even though he hasn't put up great numbers, he's been good. The bullpen's been good, but it is that offense. I mean, they're hitting 211 as a team, which is especially in this offensive era. It's just awful. It's just terrible. They're not getting on base. And so I think just the 3 starters, which is kind of funny because we talked about if those 3 starters are on, this team's going to be great. Well, those 3 starters are on, and this team is 3rd in the NL Central this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I want to bring up the offensive point here because their offense is really bad, but really interestingly, they've scored 161 runs, which is 11th in the National League. There are 3 National League Central teams below them. The Brewers, Pirates, and Cardinals are dead last. But the Reds are in 4th place. So obviously their pitching's been really good, but they're not getting the timely hitting, I would say. And they're just not putting together consistent scores to win ball games. Like Nick said, 211, that's worse in baseball. Their on base percentage is 312, which is 22nd in baseball. Any way you cut it, it's been bad, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of analysts, including people on our podcast, were hyping up their new additions: Mike Moustakas, Nicholas Castellanos, Shogo Akiyama in that lineup, and they have been, except Castellanos' home runs, they have been bad. Let me just kind of run it down for you. Shogo Akiyama has, let's see here. Okay. Now 196 batting average, 299 on base percentage. He does have 4 bags, but that's pretty much all you can really.
And a good defense.
And good defense. I'll say that, good defense. Yeah, really good defense. Very bad with the stick. Mike Moustakas has 3 home runs for a guy who they really rely on. He's been hurt too. He's been out. I think he had the COVID scare, if I'm not mistaken. 232 batting average, 333 on base percentage. And then Nick Castellanos, he's got his 12 home runs, so you know you're going to get the home runs out of him. But he's in 243 with a 333 on base percentage. His OPS is under 900. They expected a lot of guys because this offense, besides Suarez and Joey Votto, who's been going downhill quickly, has not been amazing. And those 3 guys have not put out, and they were expecting them to be their best hitters. But a surprise player in Jesse Winker has come up, and I know Robert wants to talk about Winker because he's looking like a potential MVP candidate at this point.
Yeah, Jesse Winker has the launch angle swing. He's a very interesting character because he hit for average when he first came up, and he wasn't hitting home runs. Then he got sent down. They wanted to fix something. He comes back up. He doesn't hit for average. He starts hitting home runs. So then he comes back again. Here he is today, and he's now an MVP talk player. And when you look at the comparison, it's almost like Cody Bellinger, the legacy that he built in Los Angeles. The swing is almost similar, and it's also just, if you look at the statistics, Bellinger is got on base last season. He was a guy that struck out a ton, just like Winker did kind of when he first came up. And he's putting it all together, and that's something that's super, super important. And you really got to like that with the Reds because Cincinnati has had so much trouble trying to find consistent outfielders to get production before they got Castellanos and obviously Akiyama, but Akiyama hasn't put out either. But this is something that the Reds really need. They need a cornerstone player to build around. And he's not exactly the youngest player out there, but it's something that they need to have, and they need to make sure that they maintain it right. They've been using him well, and I think this is a very solid player. I do think he's overperforming just a little bit, but I do think that you can't discredit what he's doing. He's hitting fairly well. He's doing the right things. I think even analytics are backing him up. This is a solid player, and the Reds should be lucky that they have this guy, personally.
Yeah, and it's the question that you said, it's the injury. Can he stay healthy for a full season? And so far, it's so good for him. He's been pretty good. I mean, honestly, if he can keep this up, he'll be in the MVP discussion. There's a guy named Fernando Tatis Jr. who might be running away with it over in San Diego.
Although his defense is pretty bad, so.
Yeah, I still think he's running away with it.
Yeah, they don't care about defense.
He's been amazing. And then Mookie Betts is there too, Robert. That's your guy. I was
going to say, that hurts my feelings.
Yeah. I didn't forget about him. I just think Tatis might be in the lead. Maybe we'll have a awards show breakdown before they all come out. Okay. Ideas right here on the podcast.
We're already coming up with them.
Who are some guys that are standing out for you? Obviously, like we said, the offense is bad, but on the other side of the coin, the pitching has been actually really good, especially a guy named Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I mean, we've always gone back and forth on him on the podcast. We always talk about how he's just your typical strikeout guy. And he's getting his strikeouts this year, but he also has a 2.05 ERA and a .86 WHIP. And he's doing that with if we look at the analytics here, he hasn't been great. He's been getting hit hard. He has people are getting high exit velocity off him. His fastball is it's dropped a lot. But everything else, he's getting a lot of strikeouts, a lot of swings and misses. His spin rates are off the charts, and he's just been elite this year. It's interesting that they didn't trade him, but also he's kind of a saving grace for them if they do make a run, because he is having one of the best years of his career. He already has 61 strikeouts in 44 innings. He's pitching in such a hitters-friendly ballpark, and to have a 2.05 ERA, limiting home runs, he's been absolutely outstanding for them, better than I think any of us could ever imagine him to be.
Yeah, the only problem with him is always repeating mechanics. I just think his mechanics are very questionable, and therefore we've seen the tale of two when it comes to some of his seasons where the walks become an issue or hits become an issue, and he just control is just the biggest thing with him. There's no question he has strikeout potential, but can he become a pitcher and not a thrower? That's always the question.
I would say he might be too much of a pitcher, because if you talk about a guy who tinkers with everything, this guy wants to perfect so much about how he pitches that he overdoes it and he overcorrects, or he'll add a pitch that doesn't need. And that's what happened in Cleveland. He probably would have won Cy Young a few years ago if he didn't have that injury near the end of the season. He was probably first place at the time in terms of the running. And then the next year he gets shelled. It's a mental thing for him.
Yeah.
And he's been well known. It's been well known. He tinkers so much, and he analyzes everything to the decimal point in terms of all of his statistics and analytics, that I think it gets a little overboard. And so can he just kind of be happy with where he's at?
Yeah.
And just kind of repeat that, like you said, Robert.
Yeah,
or is he going to tinker some more and then have to fix it again?
Yeah, you hope. He's working right now, so hopefully it doesn't change much. But
yeah, and then you talk about a guy like Sonny Gray, who was really, really good. Then he got kind of lit up a start or two ago. And then Luis Castillo, who's one of my favorite pitchers. He gets a lot of strikeouts, but he also walks quite a few batters too.
Yeah,
but he's been good too, not like anything crazy. It's been kind of the fifth starter for them that they haven't really been able to figure out. DeSclafani, Wade Miley's on the IL right now, and so they had to kind of shuffle guys in there. But for the most part, their four pitchers have been really good, and that's what we expected.
TJ Antoine has been.
He's been surprising.
Talk about saving grace. This guy,
been surprising.
Everything about him, old school, new school, everybody loves him. This is going to be one of the. I mean, you talk about Zach Gallen last year, Luke, to me, about being a really good potential pitcher. This guy has very good potential. I don't know if he's Zach Gallen, but this is a diamond in the rough, number 28 prospect in the Reds system out of 30, and he's really slept on. I'm really impressed by his stuff. Fastball, slider, changeup still working in progress. He mixes in an occasional curveball, but this guy has good stuff. And even if he doesn't make it as a starter, his high relief is very right there.
Looks like he's got 2 starts, 3 starts this year, but
he's been better out of the pen.
I think one was like an opener.
He had like a spot start earlier this year, and now he's kind of. It looks like he might be in the rotation now.
Should be.
But really short stints.
Yeah.
Probably because he's not built up. But I'll be honest, I haven't watched a lot of them, so I'm excited to watch.
It's pretty nasty.
You should watch them. Well, it was Nick, Noah, and I. We were just watching a Cubs and Reds game. We were just laughing about the Cubs pen, like, oh, they're gonna blow it. And then this guy out of nowhere comes out of the Reds pen. We're like, who the heck's this guy? And Noah saw him first because I don't know what Nick and I were doing, but he was like looking at the screen and he's like, guys, this guy's like really good. We're like, what? So I tuned in. I'm like, holy crap! I just fell in love right there and there.
Yeah.
Right there and then. And I was like, holy smokes, dude, this guy's got potential.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so surprising, though, because I did have him looked up on the prospects, and I have him in the top 15 for them. And the problem with him was he just couldn't strike anybody out in the minors to be a top prospect. And then he comes up here, and he's striking out 11 per 9. He never had more. I think the highest he had was a 9K per 9, and he was walking 5 guys at the time. He's striking out guys at a 11 per 9 clip. Like, he's figured something out, and they just can't see the ball, or he's improved his spin rate or something, but he's been a very big surprise for the Reds.
So what I think with the Reds, when you talk about the bullpen, I just think a lot of their guys have underperformed. It's nice that they got Archie Bradley. I think he hasn't had a great season really with the Diamondbacks, but he's got that length and he has the closer role because, look, Raisel Iglesias might not have it anymore. It might be Bradley's to take over soon. Who knows? But the thing is, you have that depth, and that's really important. Where as I said, a lot of these guys just really underperformed. Nate Jones, I had really high hopes going into this season, not because of his injuries, but because he's got good stuff and he has high upside. But the problem is, in a short season, when you don't get that spring training, he's not going to get that lengthened arm going, and that could be a result of why he stinks right now. I don't know. I can't really say for sure, but I could say that is a definite possibility. Where they're also getting very sneaky arms like Lucas Sims has a 2.16 ERA,
He's been really good.
23 strikeouts in 16 innings. He's been solid. And then, of course, Amir Garrett, everyone knows him. He is well known, and this guy is disgusting. He's been one of the best relievers the last couple years. I mean, the Reds have underperformed when it comes to the bullpen. The offense has underperformed. It's not supposed to be amazing. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be really, really good. I thought it was going to be pretty good, like maybe just a little bit above average. I thought their pitching was going to carry them. I really did, because I thought the NL Central was a little weaker, and I thought that with their pitching, the great two with Sonny Gray Bauer, and then the bullpen was going to be enough to win this division, just because the NL Central was so weak. Yeah, at least I thought so.
I mean, like, you even bring up Robert Stevenson, who hasn't been great. Yeah. I think they're just almost exaggerating what we thought they'd be good and bad in. Like, no one ever thought they're going to have a leading the league in team average.
Right.
The 211. I mean, for guys like Nick Castellanos, who's been notoriously a great contact hitter, he's hitting 215 the past 20 games. It's like this. Moustakas can't hit home runs. It seems like they're just over exaggerating everything we thought they'd be good and bad at. Like, pitching's been good for those top three. A couple guys at the bullpen have been good, but it just seems like their offense and the back end of their bullpen, the fifth starter, it just seems like there's stuff that is so bad right now they just can't get it figured out.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, this team could be the Mets. I mean, everyone hyped up the Mets for so many years. They had those good starters, and here it is. It's not working. It just happens.
And I mean, they were a team we were worried about what they're going to do with their outfield, and no one informed in their outfield. Kino's not even playing. We thought, well,
right, and that's confusing to me too. When the offense isn't producing, at least give him a shot. Look, he's not going to get on base, but maybe he's going to be a spark plug. We've seen that little run he had. I don't think he's an amazing player, but I think he still has some spark plug potential in him where they need it. I mean, look at the Twins with Buxton. Sometimes a little energy helps a team. Sometimes you need it.
Yeah, and that was my worry at the beginning of the year with the Reds was I don't think they're proven enough. They added so many pieces, and people were just saying, "Oh, it's all going to click. It's all going to click." And I was like, I just don't see it. Like, this team, I don't see how they're going to go from, how they weren't very good last year. I just don't see how they're going to make that jump. They made some good moves, but like Castellanos was their biggest move, and he's good, but his defense is a liability, and without he won't accept the DH role. He's kind of whining about it, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, when you seed yourself to your players like that, you got to make a decision what's best for the team. His defense is hurting that team, and his bat hasn't been that great either. So, honestly, like, you just got to kind of lay the law. It's not clicking. There's something there. It's just not clicking. They have the pieces to be a very good team. But whatever the case is, something needs to change. Together. And we talked about the Cubs bullpen compared to the Reds bullpen at the beginning of the year. Cubs bullpen's actually been better this year than the Reds. They've had some sneaky good arms. I'm not gonna lie. And Craig Kimbrell looks a lot better now if you saw him pitch the last few days. So I think the Cubs, that was my team to win the division. And I know we're getting kind of sidetracked here, but I think if you compared the Reds to the Cubs bullpen at the beginning of the year, the Cubs, I think they matched up honestly pretty well with the Reds bullpen. Reds bullpen was, well, except for Iglesias, was not that proven. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. Well, one thing, though, to go back to the offense is if Nick Castellanos isn't going to be the same guy we know this season, he's got to be that guy next year, because I don't think Winker's going to have this season again. And a 162, that's going to be pretty tough to put up similar numbers. And someone
honestly, dude, they got to DH him.
That's my biggest concern.
Can't be in the outfield.
Well, that's the thing.
I agree. I
mean,
if Nick Senzel can stay healthy,
it's like we talked about the defense. I mean, we talked in in our little group chat before this, and we talked about Byron Buxton. Yeah. And when he's in the lineup, the Twins have like a ridiculous win-loss ratio. And when he's out, I mean, he's really the Twins' only defender, and they're just not a good team when he's not in the field. But you look at the Reds, who's the star defender on that team? I mean, Shogo's been great, but they don't have a elite defender on that team.
No, he's not elite.
That can really shut down or save runs. So when you don't have that, I mean, the pitching can only do so much.
That's true.
That's really the case too. So maybe the Reds next year they put the pieces together, but this year it's looking like a lost cause for them. I'm looking at
so that's not good.
I'm looking at defensive WAR for Castellanos here, -3 according to Fangraphs. I know
So
you hate
early.
defensive WAR, but
Well, I don't need defensive war to hear that Castellanos is a horrible fielder because I
yeah,
agree.
he's bad.
I 100% agree.
All right, let's finish things off with the name game here. The name game I gave the guys was Lance Shade, and they
That's not a
both didn't
player.
believe my bluff, and they were
No, I
right.
don't.
Lance Shade's not a
Yeah.
baseball player enough.
Lampshade?
Yeah.
Like Lance Shade?
Lance
Like,
Shade.
yeah, but I was thinking like lampshade. I don't know where you got
Oh, yeah.
Lance, but
Just quickly looked around his room again.
really wasn't that clever. That's
Yeah.
all I'm gonna say.
I've had some good ones and some bad ones. Just leave it.
I
at
that
mean,
was
you had
bad.
you had a whole drive to think of one, and you
Yeah,
just
what are you doing?
I was listening to my podcast, man.
Oh.
True crime.
All right, fair enough.
wow.
Yeah. True crime, man.
All right.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week with another episode. It's fun talking about these teams we haven't talked about in the past, and good to get off the beaten path of the Twins and some other of the big teams. It's nice to do that. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you want to listen to more, you can find us on all your favorite platforms: Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play Music. Subscribe, rate, review. We'd appreciate it. Send your questions and comments to our email address. We're at thestitchespodcast@gmail.com. That's thestitchespodcast@gmail.com. And we're on social media @StitchesPod. You'll search us. You'll find us. We really appreciate it if you'd give us a follow. Until next week, we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.